3:12 in the morning, Strait of Hormuz. The radar aboard an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer on blockade patrol suddenly erupts with a red alert. Across the screen, dozens of fast-moving signals race in from several directions, closing in like a swarm of furious bees surrounding a hornet's nest. Iran has just launched a coordinated swarm operation. In only 90 seconds, dozens of IRGC fast attack boats will be close enough to bring their onboard launch systems into play. Can the U.S. Navy respond before the Strait of Hormuz turns into a danger zone no tanker would dare enter? The entire geopolitical balance has shifted overnight. With diplomacy completely broken down, Washington's maximum pressure campaign has pushed Tehran into a corner. In a last attempt to seize the initiative, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has launched Operation Hormuz Gatekeeper. Its goal is clear: take full control of the most important maritime choke point on the planet. Iran is no longer speaking in warnings. It is demanding protection payments and declaring that any Western oil tanker challenging its control of the strait will be entering a no-return zone. 3:20 in the morning. At the center of the storm is an Arleigh Burke-class Flight 3 destroyer, a $2 billion engineering masterpiece from Lockheed Martin. But it is not operating alone. High above the clouds, Boeing's all-seeing eye, the P-8A Poseidon, serves as the U.S. Navy's premier C4ISR command and control hub, continuously feeding live mapping data to the fleet. The P-8A Poseidon immediately identifies mobile launch vehicles and a group of high-speed boats leaving their concealed positions. To build a reconnaissance perimeter, an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter lifts off, deploying sonar buoys and detection equipment to scan the dark, murky waters for acoustic mine signatures hidden below the surface. 3:30 in the morning. Over the Strait of Hormuz, the digital fog begins to thicken. The P-8A Poseidon, now acting as the Navy's airborne command center, shifts from quiet surveillance to direct coordination. Its crew releases a series of AN/SS Q-53G radio buoys. Originally built for anti-submarine operations, these sensors are recalibrated to track the acoustic signatures of IRGC speedboat engines cutting through the rough waves. Within moments, a real-time digital map appears with remarkable precision, marking the position of the Iranian flotilla. The data is encrypted instantly and sent to the fleet through the Link 16 network. 3:35 in the morning. Using this information, the MH-60R Seahawk, flying along the outer edge of the combat zone, carries out the first physical response. From 8 kilometers away, beyond the reach of Iran's 12.7mm machine guns, the crew locks onto the command vessels through the MTS electro-optical system. 2 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles are released, streaking across the night with long trails of light. Guided by laser targeting, they hit the lead boats with precision, disabling the formation's command element in a burst of flame and debris. The IRGC formation begins to lose cohesion as communication between the smaller boats starts breaking down. 3:40 in the morning. Then comes the asymmetric countermove. An electronic wall rises across the battle space as hundreds of Ababel decoy drones launch from coastal caves. On the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer's AN/Spy-6 radar, the original 50 targets suddenly multiply into 500 flickering signals. The Aegis combat system struggled to separate real danger from false echoes as the screen filled with metallic clutter and waves of electronic interference. At the same time, Fajr 5 launch systems positioned along the coastal cliffs released a heavy wave of projectiles. But they were not aimed directly at the ship. Instead, hundreds of projectiles splashed down in a grid around the U.S. destroyer, throwing up towering 15-meter walls of seawater. In seconds, a thick curtain of salt spray, steam, and mist wrapped around the vessel, turning the night into a blinding maze. It was a tactical screen designed to confuse infrared sensors and laser rangefinders, forcing the U.S. crew to operate inside a storm of digital distortion and physical interference. 3:47 in the morning. The confrontation reached its breaking point as Iranian coastal units began tracking the U.S. fleet. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer immediately brought its close-in defensive systems online. Using coordinates from the P-8A, the Mark 41 vertical launch system released a salvo of precision-guided interceptors, neutralizing the coastal systems the moment they activated their targeting radars. At the same time, the SLQ-32 electronic warfare suite flooded the area with a concentrated burst of energy, overwhelming the receivers of the IRGC coastal radar network. This combined defensive response created a brief blind zone along the Iranian shoreline, waterline, opening the narrow window the U.S. Navy had been waiting for. 3:50 in the morning. With the main air bases tied up by long-range interception missions, a pair of A-10C Thunderbolt II aircraft from forward operating location Al Dhafra were urgently sent into action. These Warthogs had trained specifically for swarm control scenarios. Unlike supersonic fighters, the A-10 can hold a steady, low-speed flight at 300 knots. Paired with the sniper advanced targeting system and night vision equipment, it becomes a patient hunter, able to track fast-moving boats across the dark, open sea with calm precision. 3:55 in the morning. Taking advantage of a narrow gap in coverage, the two Warthogs dropped from the clouds and swept down along the rugged coastline. To avoid early warning systems, they threaded through the 150-meter limestone cliffs, using the terrain to stay below radar detection range. Then, without warning, they appeared just 30 meters above the water, their wings nearly skimming the white foam of the waves. IRGC soldiers were thrown into confusion as jet engines screamed overhead. In the middle of that chaos, the A-10 pilots faced shoulder-launched air defense bursts and fast-moving one-way drones rushing toward their flight path. 4 o'clock in the morning, the sky lit up with tracer lines and flares. American pilots pulled sharp 7G turns just above the surface, fighting the pressure as their vision narrowed and their bodies strained against the force. To break the incoming threats away from their aircraft, they released chains of magnesium heat decoys burning at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The blinding flashes reflected across the Black Sea like lightning trapped on the water. Through the chaos, the A-10 formation steadied. The pilots locked their targets through the HUD, and the GAU-8/A Avenger cannon came alive. Its unmistakable brrrr thunder rolled across the strait, drowning out even the roar of the waves below. Every second, 65 30mm specialized rounds cut through the chaos, breaking apart obstacles and turning the speedboat formation into a field of burning wreckage and dark oil trails across the water. 4:10 in the morning. As the fight on the surface grew more intense, a new and almost invisible danger began rising from below. The Seahawk immediately switched its multi-mode radar to high-resolution short-range scanning, searching for small objects barely visible near the surface. The sensors began picking up faint metallic signals just inches above the restless water. These were not waves. They were the rhythmic signatures of Iran's Mayhem-class smart sea mines, advanced devices anchored to the seabed and designed to activate through acoustic or magnetic triggers. The pilot's voice cut through the secure communication network at emergency priority. The surface swarm is not the only threat. We have an underwater minefield at coordinate 7 Alpha. Hard turn immediately. 4:15 in the morning. Inside the Combat Information Center of the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the atmosphere shifted instantly from offensive momentum to pure survival. The captain ordered an emergency stop and commanded a sharp turn to starboard. The 9,000-ton destroyer leaned hard into the maneuver, its hull groaning under the pressure as it narrowly avoided a cluster of mines that could have caused devastating damage below the waterline. Then the AN/S QQ-89 system revealed the full scale of the trap. The Strait of Hormuz had been heavily seeded with mines, while semi-submersible one-way attack boats were closing in from another direction. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer was caught in a deadly pincer. If it stayed still, it could focus on clearing a safe path through the minefield, but it would remain exposed to the incoming surface units. If it moved to evade them, it risked entering a hidden mine corridor. 4:20 in the morning. This was the final tactical snare. Move, and the destroyer could run into a Mayhem-class mine. Stay still, and it would become an open target for the approaching second wave of IRGC surface units. The tension became almost unbearable as the next swarm, faster and more aggressive than the first, began to accelerate across the dark water. These boats were built to strike at the waterline, aiming for the thinner steel of the hull, where even a single breach could trigger rapid flooding and force the crew into a fight for the ship itself. The U.S. crew was now trapped between a hidden mine threat and a wave of one-way attack boats, with only seconds to choose between holding position and risking a slow loss of the ship, or moving too quickly and triggering a sudden disaster beneath the hull. 4:25 in the morning. With the fleet pinned in place, the captain of the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer authorized the most extreme non-physical response available, the full activation of the shipborne electronic warfare system. This was not ordinary signal disruption. It was a concentrated electromagnetic countermeasure, unleashed at maximum intensity. The destroyer's electronic warfare arrays focused a powerful radio frequency beam and swept it across the strait. The effect was immediate. The remaining Ababel decoy drones lost their GPS signals and command links, then began dropping from the sky like lifeless machines. The IRGC swarm started to lose cohesion. Without central coordination, the speedboats drifted into confusion, some veering off course, others crashing into one another in the darkness. Their crews were left nearly blind as navigation screens dissolved into white static. 4:30 in the morning. As the electronic haze opened a narrow path, the ship's defensive perimeter tightened for the final close-range response. Raytheon's Phalanx CIWS close-in defense system, affectionately nicknamed hot-tempered R2D2 by the crew, began its automatic search and track cycle. Its internal radar locked onto any object moving faster than 20 knots within a 1.5-mile radius. The M61 A120mm Vulcan cannon began spinning, sending a continuous stream of tungsten armor-piercing rounds into the night at a rate of 4,500 rounds per minute. Bright flashes burst from the muzzle as the Phalanx system intercepted the incoming semi-submersible craft less than 500 meters from the ship's hull. 4:35 in the morning. At the same time, the 5-inch Mark 45 Mod 4 naval gun at the bow, manufactured by BAE Systems, opened fire at a rapid pace. It used airburst rounds with multifunction fuses, programmed to activate precisely 3 meters above the water. Each round spread a wide cone of fragments across the surface, cutting off the last fast attack boats that had managed to slip past the Phalanx defensive screen. The strait, moments earlier filled with a chaotic swarm of pressure and aggression, had fallen into broken silence. Scattered wreckage drifted across the water, and the remaining IRGC formation was no longer capable of continuing the push. The U.S. Navy had not simply survived the blockade, it had dismantled the IRGC's naval plan in minutes, using layered defense, integrated fire control, and electronic superiority to break the attack at every level. 4:45 in the morning. The nature of the confrontation changed completely. What had begun as a desperate defense was now shifting into a decisive counteroffensive. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer was no longer the hunted vessel. It had become the hunter. High above the strait, the Boeing P-8A Poseidon used its AN/APY-10 radar to cut through the haze of gunfire, salt spray, and rising steam. Through the confusion, it identified the source of the escalation, concealed launch sites, and hardened IRGC facilities carved deep into the limestone cliffs of Kesham Island. The coordinates were transmitted in real time to the A-10 Warthogs. The Warthogs returned for one final pass, this time carrying Raytheon GBU-12 Paveway 2 laser-guided munitions. With guidance from the Poseidon's targeting systems, the aircraft released their payloads with precise timing. The munitions struck the cave entrances with pinpoint accuracy, setting off powerful secondary blasts from stored fuel and ordnance inside the facilities. Moments later, sections of the hidden complex gave way, collapsing beneath the weight of rock, dust, and debris. 5 o'clock in the morning. The blockade was broken. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer advanced into the main shipping lane, restoring control over the waters and leaving behind the wreckage of an operation that had collapsed almost as quickly as it began. Tehran's Hormuz gatekeeper operation had been dismantled in less than 2 hours. The strategic advantage Iran had hoped to gain, the ability to place the global oil supply under extreme pressure, disappeared into the morning mist. What remained was the smell of burned fiberglass, drifting debris, and a campaign that had failed at the very moment it tried to show strength. But the real question is this: what would have happened if Iran had never launched that reckless swarm assault? If Tehran had chosen a quieter strategy, relying only on hidden mines and remaining out of sight, it might have forced the U.S. into a long, exhausting mine-clearing operation. Such a move could have slowed maritime traffic, shaken global markets, and created weeks of uncertainty without giving the U.S. Navy a clear target. Instead, by choosing open escalation, Iran revealed its hand. It gave the U.S. Navy the exact kind of threat profile it was built to counter. The destroyer, the Poseidon, and the A-10 Warthogs worked as one connected system, turning confusion into clarity and pressure into control. Iran did not simply lose a naval confrontation. It lost the strategic leverage it had spent years trying to build. A single tactical miscalculation by the IRGC turned its strongest geopolitical card into a liability, ending its push for regional dominance in a swift and decisive defeat.